All right. Welcome everyone to I'm going to call it the February Open Channel event, though I know that a we did do a call early in February, but with everything going on energetically and the really desire for these events to take a more predictable cadence. I was really strongly guided to do a second call in February, and then, as most of you know, I'll be hosting this call every fourth Thursday through June, and then we'll see what the guides have to say around that. But I'm really grateful that you all are here today. I believe most of you know me, but I'll give you a quick introduction. I am Amy White. I am an intuitive medium, a channel, and a truth bomb dropper. And I have been hosting these open channel events since the very beginning of the pandemic. And I continue to be guided and inspired to bring these messages out in this very public way, as a service to all that are interested in learning more about the energies and the transformations and transmutations that are happening as part of the way that the world is evolving, that the collective is evolving today. So before we get started, I also want to introduce you to Elizabeth Miner. Elizabeth is going to be helping me on today's call. So she'll be monitoring the chat. She'll be letting people in to the room. If there are questions or issues with the broadcast, please go ahead and use the chat and let Elizabeth know. And then if for some reason I need to be interrupted, Elizabeth can go ahead and do that. I do want to let everyone know, because we're still in this tale of Mercury retrograde, I have been having a little bit of issue with my network, and I'm not putting it out there, but I also want to just let you know that if for some reason I freeze or if the network drops, to know that go ahead and dial back in, or hang on the line and I'll dial back in and we'll make it work. Um, it has definitely been a challenge for the network these days for whatever reason. So, for those of you who haven't experienced a channeling call with me, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the greater consciousness. So, the greater consciousness is a group of energies that I channel. They actually came to me several years ago, even though I had been channeling their energy for a while, and said, "Hey, we really want you to call us by name, and here's the name that we want you to use." And so when I asked the greater consciousness, so who are they? What do they represent? They said that they represent all of the wisdom that ever was, and all of the wisdom that will ever be, and all of the wisdom that's here right now in this time and space in every living being. So in essence, the greater consciousness is the connection into the infinite wisdom that exists within each one of us. And so with that, the the intention as we're moving into today's workshop, today's event, is to be aware that the greater consciousness often connects with each one of us in our unique wisdom. It helps to bring words to feelings, validate our inner knowing, and they help to open us up to possibilities that we may not have yet considered. And so even though this message that will come here is one that is addressed to the collective, the greater consciousness is working with the energy of this community as we're sitting here on this call. And so the information that they bring through, not surprisingly, will likely feel very much directed to you in your unique experience. Often, I am acting as the translator of the greater consciousness. So they're sharing with me, I'm translating and sharing with you. there are times when the greater consciousness will speak directly through me. It will be very easy to see how that dance occurs. So if you haven't experienced the channeling of the greater consciousness yet, it will not be a difficult experience to see how the channeling is flowing. So we're going to go about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on how much the greater consciousness has to share. And then we'll go into question and answer. And at the time of that, we'll give you instructions on how to ask a question. And the question can be about the channeling, but it can also be about anything that's on your heart, anything that you're working through, anything that you want more information about on your specific journey. And even if we don't get to all of the questions today, know that many, many times the answers to someone else's question is also an answer to your question. So I just like to remind people of that as we work through this. See, I'm already going into channels, so my words start to become a little garbled, but I'm going to take a deep breath or two. I'm going to really connect deeply into the energy. I'm going to invite the greater consciousness in, and I invite each of you to just take a deep breath and set an intention for today's session. What's on your heart? What information have you been pondering? Where are your questions? As I said, the greater consciousness, takes all the collective energy and they use that as a way to formulate their messages when we get together in community like this. So, the first thing that the greater consciousness wants to bring through is the understanding or the idea or the knowing that, especially over the last couple of weeks, we have all been in some ways, shapes, or forms touching into some pretty watery energy. Now, not surprising if you follow astrology at all, that we've just moved into the Pisces season. And for me personally, but also sort of as a general statement, Pisces is a pretty deep, emotional, watery sign, and it tends to bring up a lot of deep emotional things within us. So as I shared, in the greater consciousness really it wants me to talk a bit about my personal experience through this, because they're saying that many will relate to this. But over the last couple of weeks, I have been experiencing some of this deep, watery energy myself and these emotions that are bubbling up out of nowhere. And one of the big turning points for me as I was processing through this energy was the realization that I could use my habitual response to emotions that feel heavy or challenging and just push it aside, or kind of go into this, not surrender, but almost like a throwing my hands up in the air and just saying, like, I can't do this, I can't process this deep emotional energy again, because I feel like at times I have been really on the cusp of what I thought was moving through some of this deep energy, only for the energy to come back a different way, or the emotion to come back a different way at a different time down the road. And the greater consciousness is saying that this is pretty typical, not just in my experience, right? But that we each have had these times in our lives where we've processed really deep emotion. We've healed some parts of us that really were felt wounded or felt raw and open, only to find ourselves face to face with those emotions again. And the greater consciousness is saying that this is not haphazard, right? The way that the energy is processing, especially the way that the energy processed for this last month, has been this invitation for each of us to, as best we can, and there's no judgment here, to touch into these deeper energies and deeper emotions, and decide, is it time? Does it feel in alignment for me to start to explore a different way of looking at these emotions, to really dive deep into the depths of the emotion as opposed to trying to swim to the shore as fast as we can and get out of the emotion. One of the things that the greater consciousness is saying is that this is a very important process to start to consider. And it can feel in our human experience challenging, scary, um, un, unattainable, or not desirable. But what the greater consciousness is saying is that this is the way that the path is being paved for the future. So, the place where we are able to, wherever that is for each one of us, and however it feels aligned and resonant for each one of us, when we can touch in deeper to the emotions, to the energy that we're feeling, and not try to fix it or make it go away, that's where that's where the juice is. That's where the real awakening and aliveness comes from. And they're saying that this is a process and an unfolding. They're not asking any one of us to just jump off, into the deep end. They're saying start to, if it feels good to you in this moment, to explore what it would look like to just touch into it a little bit more. What they're bringing into my awareness is what I shared in the email that went out about this call, which is this very interesting, very loud critic voice that came up for me over the last couple of weeks that said, I can't do this. I just can't do this. I can't look at these emotions one more time. And it was in that moment, and in almost the same moment, where this voice came in that said, but what if you can? And this is the paradox that is really defining this time in history for us. It's this idea of this and that we can have this old belief system and we can be open to this new belief system, or we can have this old way of thinking and we can be open to a different way of thinking, a different way of addressing it. When I asked myself the question, what if I can do this? What if I can do this? It 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 immediately, and I mean immediately, shifted everything. It didn't make the emotions go away because that wasn't the intention, but it did create so much space and this deeper peace for me of, oh, when I make a choice that I can do this, whatever it is, it creates more space for the possibilities to show up. It discharges or takes the charge out of these deep emotions. We're really being asked to explore this in a way that allows us to not get over whatever these emotions are that we're feeling, or the situations that we're finding ourselves in, but to learn to do the dance within it. And the more that we can dance in the space of uncertainty, this dance in the space of not sure we can do it, it is the place where we realize how much internal power and strength and knowing that we have. It is the entry point into this deeper knowing. And the greater consciousness has been using the idea that you have to go through it to grow through it, right? It's the way. And this is like they're using these kind of they're saying like cliche mantras, but because these things are really important, like when we start to really realize that these aren't just words that we say in the mirror every morning or write in our journal every morning because somehow it's going to get us to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. They're saying that this is the time to take these things that resonate with us, these beliefs that resonate with us, and touch into them, embody them in a way like we have never embodied them before. They're saying that this idea And we've talked about this before in this forum, right? We even went through the water grounding meditation a couple of months back. But they're saying that the idea that we can start to trust our own stability in an unstable environment, in a watery environment, in a fluid environment, that's where we begin to really see the power that we have to move about the world with a new way of looking at things, with a new vision, with a new set of eyes. And now the paradox here, and that's often the word that they've been using over the last couple of weeks and even months in my personal practice, as well as in these situations and one-on-one clients, is that we're being asked to take action, but we're not being asked to force action. And so one of the things that the greater consciousness wants to be really clear about right now is that even as they're saying this invitation to touch in deeper is here, they're not saying go seek out, go make a list of all of the places where you need to touch into this energy or these emotions or these situations and clear them out. Right, this is not like how many of these scenarios can I work through in the next 10 days. This is the awareness that as these things come up for us, we're ready to look at them deeper. And at the point that these emotions or these awarenesses or these energies bubble up for us, we get to make the choice. Is this the time for me to try to look at, to be with, to dance with this scenario in a way that I haven't done before, or is it not? And that's the beautiful part of this human experience, is that we get to choose. But what the greater consciousness is saying is whether we do it now or do it later, we're going to do it. And so the opportunity for us to really start to, you know, it's like swish it around a little bit inside of us and start to really look at whether or not this is something that feels like the way through. And then start to take the steps as we feel inspired to move in that direction. It's very different, they're saying, than, just, and they want to reiterate this because we are often so programmed to be doers, even in a time of in what feels like inability to really make things happen. But they're saying that this is the dance and flow of inspiration and allowing. And so as you are finding these things happening, and if you aren't feeling this energy right now, that's okay too, right? Because it is such a unique journey for each one of us that it it may not be time, or you may not feel ready to look at things in a little bit of a different light. But know that the invitation to become aware of this and to become aware of how it will help to bolster all of the transformation that's happening for you in a much greater and more stable way. Again, the paradox comes in, right? We're being asked, we're being invited to consider sort of jumping into, unknown waters and trust that there somehow is a deeper stability in that action, in that act, in that invitation that we're accepting. And so the greater consciousness just wants us to sort of sit for a moment in this idea that the possibilities really are here, that the opportunities for us to do this exploration in a way that can keep us feeling grounded. And to tune in a little bit, like they're having me put my hand on my heart. And so if that feels good to you, you may want to join me, but to really just feel like, where does this invitation to do this deeper exploration land for me? Does it make my chest tight? Does it make my heart race? Is there some part of me under the surface that feels that this is a deep truth for me? That is really one of the things that is so important about this work, whether you're doing this here with us in this community or with other teachers and with other communities. This idea that we've talked about over and over about checking in with ourselves, with our inner knowing, with our inner being, and saying, is this right for me? Is this on my path right now? And then really listening and really discerning. The greater consciousness is saying that, again, you don't have to leave this call today and jump into the deep end. This is something that can be done at a pace that feels good to you. But they're also saying, and they want to remind us that there is so much transformation that's happened for each one of us, since in the last 12 months, and in many ways even before that, but that's really kind of come up for us in a big awareness that we are transforming, that we are shifting, that we are coming deeper and deeper into this connection with ourselves. And so this is a piece of the puzzle that many of us here in this community, but then in the greater collective as well, haven't been ready to really embrace and embody. And yet the timing now from the greater consciousness is saying is really beautiful for us to begin this exploration. Because as we explore it, as they were saying, and as we start to feel more and more confident and comfortable in this fluidity, unknown, uncertainty, and yet grounded feeling, it will help us to not just ride the waves of what's to come this year and beyond. It's going to help us to be in a place where we can be creative, we can be expansive, we can grow and flourish and thrive in this space. As the greater consciousness has been saying for many, many months now, there's nothing that's stopping us from thriving right now. There's nothing that's prohibiting us from this expansion, from seeing and being a co-creator of our biggest dreams, of our dreams coming true. And so as we as we sit and take this in and consider the light and the dark and the ease and the perhaps challenge that comes with some of this contemplation, some of this thought process, to just know that the the opportunity here, above everything, is to be in loving connection with ourselves. And the more we can be gentle and loving and nurturing as we start to do a deeper exploration, it will take us to the next chapter and the next level and the next and the next and the next. It is where they're saying it is where the it's like where the bud of our soul expansion is in this space of touching in. A number of times, the greater consciousness has spoken to us about this balance point, right? It's this, and they want me to bring it back around to this. It's the idea of how we hold our human experience and our soul experience in the same moment. And again, that's the paradox, right? It's like we're humans and we're souls, but how do we bring that together into wholeness? And it's the same idea, this balance point uh, between the human and soul experience, as it is when they're saying to touch in deeper to the emotion, to hold the scenario and the old story that we are telling about it, and bring in the possibility and the new story we might be able to be telling about it, or that is really more aligned with our truth. So going back, they want me to go back to the example I was talking about at the beginning of, with my own personal experience and having this really deep grief coming up for me, and having this my mind, my ego, my human thinking mind say, I can't do it. And it wasn't even in a like temper tantrumy kind of way. It was in a really resigned, I just can't do this. And then to have my soul speak up and say, but what if you can? And so as these things are coming up, can we hold space for both the can't and the can, the light and the dark, the paradox, right? The do and the allow, the human being and the soul being. It's all the same, they're saying, in the way that we can approach it. And they're saying that regardless of which of the things that they just brought through that we're contemplating, it's the idea that we come into wholeness. It's the idea that we find a way to accept all of the pieces and parts of us, the grief and the joy, right? The happiness and the sadness, the certainty and the uncertainty. This this is it's like where the rubber is meeting the road for us to start to really embody, as they said, embody this idea. Not just be aware of it, but start to embody it in whatever way feels resonant with each one of us. And they're saying that they know like that this can create not just a thinking fear sensation, right? But a visceral sensation within many of us that there is so much that we are processing through in this life experience that we could call trauma. And this is not a unique experience. They're saying that there is so much trauma being processed now in this time and space. We can call it grief, we can call it sorrow, we can call it shame, we can call it enoughness. But the trauma is there in our bodies viscerally. And so as they were saying to touch in and put your hand on your heart, if you felt fear, if you felt your heart, your lungs, your chest tighten, if you felt your heart race, just know that that's part of this process. And so they want to be really clear with this because we've talked about this before, this idea of self-harming through service or self-harming through vulnerability. And so they're certainly not asking any one of us to do something that's going to cause us more harm. But the idea is to come into awareness of where these traumas are, where these trauma stories are, and then as best as possible begin to recreate, rewrite the narrative. That's not to bypass what we've experienced here in this human life journey, but to bring that experience in to the whole in a way that allows us to move through the water just a little bit more courageously or in a way that is intentional. And both are saying that's kind of the paradox too. It's like that courage and intentionality at the same time. And they want to, and they want to be really clear on this also, and that there's no portending doom here. There's no portending something coming in the future that is going to cause us, our lives to turn upside down. This is about learning a way of being in connection with ourselves, another layer of this conversation that we've been having about being in connection with ourselves. It's they're saying that it's time to be open to the possibility that we can look at these heavier emotions, these heavier energies, these situations that we've lived through in a way that gives us space to continue to move forward, to continue to move beyond just that experience. The greater consciousness is saying that one of the things that has a tendency to trip up our human experience is that we continue to renew the subscription to our old stories, and we do that by telling the story over and over and over again until it just becomes our truth. And it's the only truth that some of us can see. And so, another way to look at the information that the greater consciousness is sharing today is to start to say, what if? What if some of these truths that I'm holding on to so tightly about myself and my journey and where I've been wronged and where I was hurt and where I was shattered and heartbroken and grief stricken and all of those things, where can I start to open up the grasp on that story enough to allow it to have space around it for more to come in? More to come in is the invitation. More to come in while we allow and hold, hold those things as well. It's this and the paradox, the light and the dark, they're saying again and again. It's really the way that they're showing this to me is this it's the I'm just asking for because they're showing me this picture. So I'll tell you what the picture is, and then I'll see if I can get the right words, the words that they're trying to get me to communicate. But they're showing me a path, like an in the dark, but there's a path, and it's very well clear. And this idea and this invitation that they're bringing to us today is I'm looking down because I'm seeing the path. Um, is what illuminates the path. It becomes the headlamp that illuminates the path so that we're not having to work so hard to find the path. But we have to be in a space where we have the ability to light the path from within. And these ideas, this guidance, the messages that they're sharing with us today are all about illuminating that path and illuminating the path from our inner knowing, from coming into that connection with deeper with the who we are at the soul level and honoring the who we are at the human level. They're using the word, they've been using this word all week in the different events and work that I've been doing, and it's magic. It's magical in the most sacred way to be able to come into this type of connection with ourselves and to do it with intentionality and desire and allowing and trust and holding space for the fear, holding space for the uncertainty, holding space for the not enoughness, holding space for the unworthiness, holding space for the holding space for holding space for. It's this and it's both. And as we come into contact with this and start to become intentional about it, even if we don't take action immediately, inspired or otherwise, to know that the awareness that they're bringing through today has already opened the gate for this broader perspective, this broader reach for each one of us. And then we get to choose how we want to baby step, move forward, step, let the bridge form around us. And and coming from a place where and because they're showing me like we all get this, is that as we do this, the magic, the sparkly magic that is there for us shows itself in ways that we haven't seen for a very long time. And so to know that there will be validation as you start this exploration, to see what comes of it for your highest good, and to trust that you are on the path because you can't get it wrong. You can't get it wrong. But the greater consciousness says it can be with more ease and flow and grace. And the messaging that they're bringing forward, especially today, this is some deep, deep rooted stuff. That the messages help to be that pathway to the ease and flow and grace that we can welcome in. It doesn't have to be through crisis. It doesn't have to be through dark nights of the soul, though those may come still in some ways, shapes, or forms, but that we can set the intention for this to be much more with ease, even as it feels challenging. The greater consciousness says there is much more to come on this discussion and this sort of deeper diving into and under the surface of some of the things that we haven't been able to look at or haven't even been aware of until now. But to know that as we do this exploration, we are clearly and directly on our path to this expansion, to this evolution that we came here in this life experience to learn. And they're saying it really will make a big difference in the long term as we begin to allow ourselves space for this exploration. And again, they're saying in whatever way works for you, in whatever way resonates for you, in whatever way you need to create support and structure around it as you begin this exploration. This isn't something that you have to do on your own, that it can be supported in community, it can be supported in circles, it can be supported one on one in therapy, in coaching, in intuitive guidance, in whatever way you feel called. But the more we're open to this exploration, the more expansion will come for us. We're going to shift to questions, but one of the things that the greater consciousness wants me to bring up is that there is a water grounding meditation that I made available to this community a couple of months ago. If you have not received that because you haven't been on this call before and you're interested in that, it's a free meditation. And when I send the replay link out, please feel free to just respond and I'll send you the link to the meditation. Or I may, they're saying just include it in the email as well. So they're saying that that can be something that really helps to sort of bolster and shore up this all of these ideas that they've shared with us today. So as we said at the beginning of the call, we will open things up for questions at this time. If you're interested in asking a question, whether it's related to the channeling or anything that's on your heart or mind, go ahead and just put a question mark in the chat box, and Elizabeth will help to facilitate bringing these questions through. You're welcome to unmute yourself when it's your turn to ask the question, or if it's easier or you don't have a microphone, to go ahead and just type the question in the chat box.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
A little bit lost.
Oh my goodness. Okay, what's happening?
So my dad's month-long battle with COVID and being in the hospital and almost dying, and now being home and me being very involved in his process of healing, kind of came into my life like a tsunami. And or like I've been telling people, it's like a loud marching band came into a life that was before very peaceful and very quiet.
Yeah.
And as he gets well and it's more on his wife and immediate folks around him to take it from here, I find I can't go back to my life the way it was. It's like I can't even find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet I have no idea where. I feel like there's something more engaged, more active, more focused than I've been living over in recent years. And I have no idea what it is. And I don't even know what I would want it to be.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting as you were telling the story, or the greater consciousness was saying, is that you've actually been asking for that marching band for a really long time. And you even touched into it with, the questioning of like, do I go out and become an advocate? Do I push against, what's happening in the world? Like, how do I use this energy to to touch into the aliveness within you. And so they want to really spell that out first, because that is what you're asking for. And so the and it's not that you asked, and they want to be very clear, right? And you know this, but I'm going to say it for everybody's that you didn't ask for your father to get sick. That wasn't what you were at, that wasn't part of this. But the whole co-creation of the experience was to give you that push to say, it's time to start to shed the cocoon. Now, what they're saying is that you don't need to know exactly what it is that you're being called to do right now. It's more in the idea that you start to embody the idea that you can show up in the world in a much bigger way, because there's some clearing that needs to happen there. And it's less about like clearing out the cobwebs and more about this push pull you have of wanting and needing solidarity, or wanting and needing you to be solo and on your own and having this space, and then wanting and needing this bigger energy around you. And so what they're saying is part of this time is to come into understanding that you can have both, that it's not one or the other, because there's a belief system, whether you're sensing it or not, that says I have to give up one to have the other. And so that keeps you stuck in the center of kind of not being able to move one way or the other. So what the greater consciousness is saying is that this time is for you to start to build the blueprint of how, not what you're going to do right now, but how it could look. Can I be active and still have my recharge time, my solo time? Can I be creative and not give up a part of me that needs to plug back in for long periods of time? Because what they're showing me is it's almost like a month, a month, a month, a month. It's like what you were creating, you can go out there and be in the world and be on, like on Broadway lights on you, the whole thing. But then you really need that recharge time. And you can have both, they're saying. So this is the sorting and sifting part of the journey for you, to get more, to be more coming into more alignment with how you want it to look and taste and feel, and less about what the thing is you're going to do. That's coming, and it's going to be really obvious. They're saying like you may discount it once or twice before you realize like, oh dang, that's the thing, but right now it's about getting yourself in a place that you're able to visualize this, and that you're able to see the blueprint, that you're able to come into contact with how you want to feel when you're in the space of marching band energy, and how you want to feel when you're in the space of quiet solitude. And then as you come into contact with both of those, the rest starts to unfold for you. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're showing me that really strongly. And to not push against the idea that, and to not tell the story that you can't go back to what was, but um try to reframe it to be more this is an opportunity to expand on what is, and that will help to just keep you from getting stuck in the space of like analysis paralysis.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
you're welcome. Elizabeth, do we have more?
Okay, Ryan has a question if you want to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks, Amy.
Hey.
Piece that really resonated with me today was the this and I will share that I have a lot of uncertainty and a lot of there's some frustration, there's some grief, and I've been working on not seeing things through an evaluative sort of framework as being good or bad. But my question is, if you have any wisdom for how to hold space for fear and uncertainty, which I think in the past I would have initially seen as bad, and am working to try to dismantle some of those like defenses that instinctually go up, and just trying to figure out how I can be a little bit more flexible, and a little bit more, I don't want to say open, but open, and
Yeah.
just sort of and allow any of those things to come up and come through my experience.
Yeah, and the first thing the greater consciousness is saying is that to just be an awareness that you're really rewriting an entire program. They're showing me like computer programming, right? It's like there's something that's really big here, and it's not just this lifetime, but it's lifetimes of this belief that you've carried with you around this good and bad, but about like how having these feelings that can be interpreted as negative, how that directly relates to your value and worth. And so there's messaging under the surface about that. And one of the things that the greater consciousness was bringing in, just as you were asking this question, is this idea that you can you can invite these emotions to the table, right? Like invite them for dinner, invite them for tea. And one of the visions and one of the visuals that the greater consciousness shares with me very often is this idea that you have a round table, right? So there's no head of a table. Everybody who sits at the table is sort of equal footing, right? Because there's no designated head of the table. And so you can bring in fear and grief, frustration and anger, and you can also invite in happiness and wonderment and joy and peace, and seat them at the table, and then give them the opportunity, each one, to speak. And if you think about being in a circle, being in a women's circle, or being in a circle of friends, or being at a round table at an event, everybody kind of has the opportunity to just share their story. And if you make space for that, and that's really in this case what they're talking about for you in making space, it's this idea of giving room, giving time for these emotions to have a bigger voice, and let them say even the things that, you know, don't try to censor it or make up the story in your thinking mind that says, well, this is what grief should be saying. Like, let them say whatever. Let them cuss, let them cry, let them be mad, let them be, a 5-year-old having a temper tantrum, like whatever the emotion needs. Like, really see it as an entity that's both within you but also outside of you, and start to create that dialogue. And what they're showing me is that you will be not just surprised in a really magical way, but also it's going to help you to connect deeper into that wholeness that they were talking about, because it allows you to bring those, call them by name, illuminate them because they're on your path, and then work with all of the energies as you move forward. Does that make sense to you?
It makes total sense. And
Yeah, they're like your
Mhm.
Sherpas almost. Like if you think about the visual that the greater consciousness was bringing through about this path that's well defined, but you're in the dark and you have a headlamp. It's like these emotions, and especially the stickier ones, they're out front. They're out front, you know, checking the trail ahead of you. They're clearing, they're really making the path more and more obvious to you. And so they're important partners in what you're going through right now.
That's
And if
so
we haven't talked about it before, and we might have, but there's that TED Talk that's that uses the fable of good or bad, hard to tell. And that's really to go back to that idea that as these emotions are coming up, to not bypass them or make them go away, but also to realize that in the moments that you're feeling them, you often don't have all of the information to know whether or not what's happening is good or bad. It's really hard to tell. And the funny part of that, the paradox, is that you often, as you move through the situations, you never really come back to a place where you have to judge them good or bad. You just allow them to be on your path. And so that's a practice, practice, practice. As they said, you're reprogramming some very deep cellular, ways of being. But this is an easy, gentle way to do it. And whether you just have the conversation in your mind with these emotions, or you do it in a journal, or you set the table and actually give them place cards, like there's so many ways that you can play with this to allow for what you need to come through.
awesome. Thanks, Amy.
Next question is from Manju, and I asked if they wanted me to read it or if they wanted to give it themselves. Manju, if you would like to share this question yourself, you can unmute yourself. If you would not, I can read it to Amy. All right, I'm going to read it. Question is, I've been having gut issues, digestive issues from quite some time. Many of the foods that were okay before are not going well with my system, and I'm learning to pay attention to how my body feels as I eat different foods, and reading books and having conversations on food intolerances. As I'm exploring different books and relating to my body, my food choices are getting lesser and lesser. Would like to see this from the greater consciousness perspective. What can I do to heal?
So one of the things that the greater consciousness is coming through with right away, and again, we've said this a number of times, but there's no judgment here, is that just to be aware that where you put your attention, where you put your focus, is often what continues to manifest in your life. And so there's, this is again the paradox analogy that they've been talking about, because it's this, and it's being aware and coming into contact with your body so that you can see what feels good to you and what doesn't, and then make choices based on that, but not to start to create the stories around this is bad, this is causing me problems. Because as you create stories around food or anything that pushes against the coming together as a whole, it actually creates more disconnection in your system. And for you, there's two things that are really going on. The first is that you have been and are in a time of very deep transformation. So much around you is changing. So many decisions you've had to make, so many weighing and sifting and sorting of, what is best for you, what is best for the people around you. And yet there's this part where your body is saying, like, you've spent a lot of time focused outward, and there's more desire for your body, physical body, and your soul body to be taken care of inward. And so as you begin to both be aware of what works for you and not push against what doesn't, you're going to see yourself coming into much greater balance. Now, there they're wanting to point out too that that it is for you. They're showing me a lot of judgment around this. That there's almost this feeling that your body is somehow rebelling against you or pushing against you, and what they want to be clear about is that this is your body's way of getting your attention so that you can work with it in a loving and nurturing way to come into that stasis that they were talking about, into that center point where you can be, um, even down the road, reintroducing some of these foods that are giving you trouble at this time. So it's about, where you're putting your focus and the stories that you're telling about it, and then start to look at how you can change the narrative so that you're making these choices in a loving, kind, compassionate way for your body right now, as opposed to what you can't have or what the food is doing or what the body is doing. Does that make sense? Is she still
She's
there?
having some audio issues, she
Okay.
said.
Got it. So,
Oh,
Manju, feel free to uh, write more in the comments if you need to, or if you can get your mic to work, I'm happy to continue this conversation.
I see Manju was unmuted, but I'm not hearing her.
Okay.
So
So-
Michelle also had something to say, so I don't know if you're ready to move forward or if you want to keep talking on that.
No, I think
Um,
we're good now. What I would like to do is, Manju, if you want to continue this conversation through chat, we can come back to you. I don't want to just leave it there, but they also, feel like they're making me feel like a lot of what they were sharing is really resonates with you. So perhaps you've gotten what you needed from that answer. All right, Michelle, did we say Michelle?
Yeah, Michelle, did you want to have your question, Michelle, directly? She is unmuted,
I'm not hearing you, Michelle.
and I'm not hearing her. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Hello?
ask what she.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there she is.
Yes,
Okay.
hello.
I had to disconnect my, I'm out walking. So, hey, Amy. So I'm kind of breathing a little bit. So don't
That's
think
all
I'm
right.
weird.
No worries. Nice to see you.
Yes. So, oh my gosh, so much wisdom today. Wow. Blowing my head the whole entire time. I'm completely with everything you said right now. But there was a point where you said, where we were putting our hand on the heart while I joined you there to feel, if there was something underlying. And I immediately found that, my vision, it's my eyes, and somewhat like I resonate with what you're saying. I understand it. I'm working it. I'm actually in my flow. So it's like a ping pong ball, and maybe I see glimpses of things and I try attaching to it, and I just see so many different avenues right now. So I'm want to ask a little bit about that, first of all, because, but it's just like, and then there's also this connection with animals recently, and I just feel like my intuition is just telling me to trust, and that is a truth, but the curiosity in me is wanting to know, I know there's action to take too, but it's just like I'm feeling overwhelmed in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's one of the things that's really powerful about the way that your human mind and your heart mind are so active both at the same time right now. And this idea of holding space for both can be challenging when both are so active. And so
Yes.
one of the things that the greater consciousness is saying, and we know this is a challenge for you specifically, is to kind of step back from all of it. Like,
Okay.
don't try to figure any of it out and
Mhm.
be in a space like literally they're saying take the next couple weeks and every day set the intention to be in awareness, but don't be in storytelling mode, right? It's
Mhm.
like they show me you seeing 333 on a license plate, and then the rest of the day it's like, I wonder what that means. I bet it means this. I bet it means that. I
Yes.
bet it.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
That's yeah.
Yeah, and
You're
so
totally right.
almost like if you you don't need to stop it or shut that part of you down. And so this is where the again the paradox is, right? It's that, if you can keep a
Knowing.
journal or use the notes on your phone and just be like, oh, cool, look, 333, write it down so that you don't, your thinking mind gets satisfied, right,
Right.
with acknowledging it. But then close the app and let it go. You know, it's when when you're having the sense of the animals and the animal communication, which feels very strong to me, by the way, to make note of it and let it go and just see how you start to come into awareness, not only with all the signs and symbols and things that are showing up for you, but also in the awareness of how you are processing it, because that little bit of space that they're suggesting that you make, and we're talking about making space again, that the space that you make sort of between the thinking mind and the heart mind is actually going to allow you to open up to more. Now, I don't know if we had this conversation with you before, but one of the things the greater consciousness is saying is that you do not have to get there at 90 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
You really, you're in a 25 mile an hour zone, girl, and you're going to get a ticket. So,
Okay.
part of this is having the conversation with your heart mind and your thinking mind to say, hey, what if we just slow it down a little? Because all that is there for you can't catch up to you at this point. And so it just creates a frenetic energy that doesn't serve you. So this is a practice for you. And this is an unraveling, again, just similar to what we were saying to Ryan a few minutes ago. This is a deeply coded survival mechanism for you. And so be gentle and loving and nurturing and just be aware. Oh, there, I'm doing it again. Oh, I can reduce the speed. I don't have to get there by Tuesday. I can get there a year from Tuesday and I'm going to get everything that I need. Does that make sense to you?
It all makes sense to me. And yet there's the paradox, which is what is, yes, everything makes sense to me. And even the knowing of what you're saying is true, the insight that I know that already, which is, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
there's also this moment in time where it's like, you know, I'm kind of reinventing, so it's just like I feel like I want to be patient and everything, but I still need to like make sure the family is surviving. You know what I mean? Just like,
Completely. And that is complete. That is like completely and totally the paradox, right?
yes,
And so they're not saying don't do the things that you need to do in this human experience to take care of the things that you need to take care of, but don't create more noise, more pedal to the metal than you need to. And you're going to have, that's part of this journey for you, is to find your way into that center. And sometimes you're going to list one way and sometimes you're going to list the other way, but the more you can recognize it and bring yourself back to center, what you're going to find is two things. One, the things that you need to have in this life experience will come with much more ease, and the opportunity for you to create and expand and embody all that's here for you and that's coming for you and that's in your vortex. It's all, it can't get there until you find more time in that center. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, I guess, and I already know the answer. I'm on a new path, and when you guys said, oh my gosh, blew my mind with the headlight,
Hmm.
because I literally had that vision, like a year ago, and I thought like it was um like a lighthouse feeling, but gosh, it totally resonated with me.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's like I know I'm on this path, so just keep going is like what I'm hearing, and just be patient.
Keep
Go with the
going,
flow.
be
Go with the flow.
patient, but I mean, what really at the bottom of all of this is, do this is in as loving and nurturing a way as you can, because that's what's going to take you down the path. That's what fuels your headlamp, right? The doing, it's there's no, you're not missing anything. That's what the greater consciousness wants you to know. There's no
Right.
deadline, there's no timeline. You don't have to embrace all of the gifts of the universe by May 1st of 2021, or you've missed the bus. It's not that at all. In fact, what they're
Good.
saying is, here's the real talk, right? It's that you don't have all of the information yet.
Yeah.
You're still gathering it, you're still learning it, you're still exploring it. And believe me, they're loving your enthusiasm. And it's also not sustainable. And they're showing me that you have had a little tendency in the past to get really fired up about things, go full tilt, burning the candle at both ends, and then you find yourself a little disgruntled, a little resentful, and confused about why it didn't work. And
Yeah.
so the you're being invited to do it differently. Not about perfection, Michelle. It's not about perfection. It's really and truly about just being aware of where you're in the old habit and where you can slow it down.
Okay.
It's all coming to you, but you also have to slow down enough for it to catch up with you.
Right.
I mean, that's definitely what they're saying.
Any clues on how to slow down?
Yeah. Every morning, set the intention that your
Yes.
worthiness isn't dependent on how fast you're going. Your value to the world isn't relying on how fast you get there. You're valuable and worthy right now, and it's growing and expanding, and you're embodying it day by day, step by step. You have to be intentional about it. You have to get to a place, or not. They use the word have to, but of course there's no have tos in this beautiful universe. But you're asking to get
Yes.
to a place where you make the choice every day to not be in your old patterns. It's an inside job. It's a complete inside job. And you'll get there. And it's going to be starts and stops and spurts and sputters. But that's part of your journey. It's part of your learning. So you're not doing it wrong. You're not on the wrong path. I mean, you saw the vision of this illuminated path a year ago. You're right
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah.
it's a path. You're going to be on the path until you transition, which is not a short time from now. And so take it slow, stop and smell the roses, enjoy
Yeah.
the journey, because it's all there is. It's all it's about.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and keep asking, keep asking, keep asking, keep asking, keep showing
Yeah,
up. Yeah,
I know
really,
I need a lot of reinforcement, but it helps me like take
absolutely.
that deep breath, because I'm just used to running at Mach speed.
Yeah. And what the greater consciousness is reminding me of is that, I mean, I'm speaking, they're bringing through some of my own experiences as we're sharing with you, right? And that there's many of us that are in that same place. We've been trained and conditioned to have the pedal to the metal. And if we're not moving, 1,000 times light speed every day, there's something wrong with us. And so many in this community and in the greater collective are starting to rewrite the narrative around that, and starting to see more and more that the value is in the being. And it always has been from the minute we came into this physical, before we came into this physical. it's already here. You know, we don't have to prove it. And as you begin to unravel the need to prove it, again, no judgment, you'll start to see the ease and grace that's here for you to really enjoy this journey.
Okay.
You got
Thank
it.
you.
You're welcome.
And Richard has a comment slash question slash something he would like to share. I'm going to assume, Richard, you would like to speak on your own and not have me read this, but if you would like me to read it, just let me know.
Oh, you're muted. There you go. Oh,
Oops. I could, you could read it too, but it's okay, whatever.
no, it's good to see
No,
you, Richard.
hi, nice to see you, Amy.
Yeah.
Nice to see you too. Blessings to you and everybody here. This is wonderful service you're providing for us. We're very grateful. I just wanted to share just that with my own process going on. I'm sure probably everybody here can relate to it one way or another. And I'm relating to everything that's coming through you and other people were sharing. Um, I'm getting really, really clear that I really need to allow myself the freedom just to focus more on content and not the form of my life. Because when I don't, I get very frustrated. And there are certain things that I would like to see happen, and I'm visualizing it and doing all the metaphysical things and all that stuff. But it's really about, for me anyway, I'm just speaking for myself right now. It's about allowing and being at peace with the duality. And no, there's always going to be the duality, and not fighting it, just kind of being at peace with it. And whatever you can add to that, I mean, will contribute to not only my life, but I'm sure everybody else here to get even greater clarity, because it really helped to really get in touch with my feelings on a deeper level tonight and clarify why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And you're totally, the higher consciousness through you is totally spot on about what's going on right now. We're being confronted with a lot of emotions, a lot of things that are, bubbling to the surface, whether we want to look at them or not. They're coming up, and so you can run from them. You could choose to run from them if you want, but it doesn't serve us as souls that here, particularly, that choosing to evolve, and really chooses to, it behooves us to look at those things and grow through them. So I just going to share that with you, and what you feel guided to say right now, deeply appreciate.
Thank you so much. I used to have a teacher years ago, and she would say, you can do it now or you can do it later, but you're going to do it. And it stuck with me all these years, because I think that, especially now with the energy that's there, it's like sometimes as humans, we have to get to a place where we're almost sick of our own stuff, to be like, okay, fine, I'm just going to look at it, because there's, I'm tired of fighting it. And so the invitation here for all of us, and it sounds like you're already embodying this, is you don't have to wait till you get to the point where you're so sick of your own stuff that you resign into it. But that is certainly a way to get there. But the fact that I think many, many of us in this community and in the collective are starting to realize, I can do it now or I can do it later, but I'm going to do it. So why not just do it now and do it lovingly? And I don't need a crisis or a dark night of the soul to bring me to my knees for me to start to look at some of this stuff. And by the way, in PS, like there will always be layers for all of us. But what the greater consciousness shared today, which I personally, in the bit that I've been able, that I kind of can still remember them saying, but what they're reminding me of is this idea that they're providing some guidance for us to find a way to make it a little bit easier, this part of the journey and this part of our learning and expansion in this life experience. And we came here in these human forms for this purpose. So it's like, it's that paradox. It's that pushing against sometimes the duality, as you so beautifully said, of our soul knowing that this is the path to expansion and our human experience pushing against it. And I think that's just part of the unraveling and the awareness that's happening right now for all of us. So excuse me, perfectly and divinely timed.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Soraya had a question for you. Soraya, do you want to unmute?
Hi, Amy. First of
Hey
all,
there.
I'm so sorry I was late. I was on a work call and I missed some of the beginning of this.
Not a
Um,
problem. You'll get you'll get the replay too in the email tomorrow.
oh, wonderful. A
Yeah.
lot of the responses I've heard you say so far have really resonated for me too. I'm like, okay. Um, this year has just been, well, like for everyone, a big year. And my father died. My dog of 16 years died. A lot of things happened. Um, but I almost felt like, oh, I think maybe something new is coming in. I did just get a new rescue puppy, Paz,
Oh,
and she got really sick the first night. So anyway, I'm hoping that she will be okay. It seems so easy and so perfect and so divinely, she's just so sweet, so much like my little dog, Ruby. And hopefully I can train her because she's a dog that lived outside. So anyway, I thought, God, that was so easy, so wonderful. And hopefully like a life partner will come into my life, just like this dog did, She seemed so much easier to find on the websites. I was looking at the website for dogs at the same time doing this dating website, but I don't know. It's, and a part of me goes, like, I don't even know if I can do this dating thing. It's been 3 or 4 years. You helped do a break from my last, anyway, I've been doing a lot of work and I really want to have the right partner come in. I'd rather be alone just with my dog than
yes.
not have a good one. So this year I kind of wanted to do 10s on everything, my career, my relationships, everything. And honestly, today I feel so exhausted. I don't know if I'm maybe getting sick, but I'm just like, is this possible? Am I just crazy? Like, am I asking too much or could it be that easy? So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Whatever comes through.
Yeah, completely. Well, thank you. Thank you. I love the question very much. And the greater consciousness is saying it's like you can manifest a button or a castle, right? At the same energy. You can manifest a puppy or a partner. It's the same energy. But what they want to be, also clear about is that there are different stories that you tell yourself about a puppy than you tell yourself about a partner. And so in order to manifest the things that you're looking to bring into your life, you have to find the clarity around what areas are you still pushing against. And even in the language that you used, and again, no judgment, it's like, I'm not even sure I'm ready for a partner. So then the universe is like, what do we do? We'll give her a puppy, instead. And so it's just, this is the time, and this is the work, and this is the work for all of us. And this is the work for all of us at all times, not just in the pandemic crazy, experience that many of us have lived over the past 12 months. It's the invitation for you is to really get clear on, back when we were talking a little bit ago about the blueprint. What does your blueprint look like? What is it that you want, all of these areas to be 10s, right? What do you want it to look and smell and taste and feel like? Not what is it? Don't go as far as tall, dark, and handsome puppy that's trained, this amount of money, from your business. But, at the end of the day, what do you want your life to feel like when you wake up on May 1st or July 1st or August 1st or December 31st? How do you want to feel? And the greater consciousness is saying when you can touch into that part of this, it all lines up. Now, they just, it lines up in divine timing, not necessarily in human timing, but it is a space for you to start to get clarity in that there's still a part of you that doesn't allow yourself to fully embrace how you want to feel, your needs. What are your needs? And so and you've been, but this is a time to get really solid on it. The space is there for you to do that. You get to choose. But they're saying that when you are able to come into contact with that part of you, then this other everything sort of, it's like a jigsaw puzzle that just everything starts to fit into place. It can all come, a castle or a button, it can all come, same energy.
Thank
Does that
you.
make sense?
Yeah. So the blueprint, how do you want to feel? How do you want to,
How do you want to feel? What do you want to smell like? You want your house to smell like roses or lavender, or you want to smell the salt air. Do you like really get creative in the five senses, but not the what, not the how, but look and taste and feel and smell. It's a whole different way of co-creating this life that you want to take to the next level.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. We've got time for
Manju
one more
is-
question.
Yeah, Manju is back and she wanted to get back online with you. So
Great.
Manju, are you unmuted? Do we have audio on you this time?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There you are.
Okay, I'm having connectivity issues today. And my audio went off right when you were answering my question. So I will go back and listen to the replay.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
Oh.
thank you.
Did you have additional question, or you're good with that at this point?
That was the question I had, but I didn't get to hear,
Sure.
what the answer was. However, listening to the other questions that other members have, to me, it feels like what it is like a worthiness issue. I think it is.
Mm, mm. Yes, there's definitely some pushing against. So have a listen to the replay, and if you have any further questions, go ahead and email me after you listen, and then I'm happy to respond through email for you.
Sure.
Because I know it's been a crazy technology a couple of weeks for all of us. I'm so grateful, knock wood, that we're still holding steady here. Okay, so I have actually a couple more minutes, maybe one more question before we bring today's session to a close.
Okay, and we are empty in the chat. So
Oh, I see Grace raising her hand.
yeah.
Oh, what the heck?
Hey.
Hello, Amy. Hello, everyone. In brief, it has to do with where I struggle with managing my energy, managing the day. And it seems like it's two positive poles of a magnet that will not touch. To be even able to write down, at this time I wake up and that time I do this and that and that. So that there's that. And then feeling it's like my palette is too full of paints, too many different paints. And then sleepiness. I feel like feels like I need more sleep. But I think it has to do with the deep diving we've been talking about in another group. And I had this beautiful image come when we were talking earlier today about, we use the words deep dive, but it was, for me, it's going under the crust of the old stories and letting the ice melt to allow space for more. Yeah. But if I keep my life too busy with too many paints and projects on the palette, there isn't that emptiness. And I feel like that's underneath the need to, like right now, I'm so sleepy, I can hardly stand it. And I've got another group to go on. I've been on, I can't do this. So that's it. And so I thought I'd just put this out, you know, even a few words that might offer just another slant of an angle to sort of dip under that ice kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's funny, Grace, because the word that comes through for you is grace, right? It's there's just there's a lot of stuff that's it's happening in your head. And you have a lot of judgments and stories and expectations and beliefs. And the greater consciousness is saying, like, the way for you to slow it down is to, as best you can, give yourself a little bit of a break. Give yourself a break that you have to do anything. You know, they're saying, why do you have to manage your time right now, today? You know, why do you have to choose what palettes you, what colors you paint, you know, or what projects you do? What if you were to take the day and give yourself full permission from the moment you get up with no alarm to the moment you go to bed with no preconceived judgment of bedtime, and just follow the breadcrumbs? Let yourself be led from this place to this place to this thing to that thing based on what brings you joy. You know, now certainly they're saying just you know, like we've said earlier, there's the human side. So if you have an appointment, you know, either reschedule it that day or find a way to work it in, right? But if you can give yourself a day to really just use your inner GPS to guide you without thinking about it, without a plan, without a checklist, without a have to have all of this done today, they're saying that you're going to see a different way of, you know, it's like not just diving under the crust, but floating on your back, you know, letting the sun hit your face. Like it's something that they're showing me that you have rarely in your life experienced, given yourself permission to just follow the guidance. So funny. So I don't know why they're giving me this, but they're showing me like an Uber driver or a Lyft driver. So if you are familiar with those ride share apps, right? The Uber driver gets in their car at the beginning of whatever they decide they're going to work, and the app beeps and they go there, and then the app beeps and they go there, and basically they get taken on a ride for however long they're doing the work that day to wherever they're being led. And it can take them far over the hill or down the block and both and back, and there's something there that's really, really juicy for you.
It's the word that comes up for me is permission.
Mhm. But permission to not have these old stories and expectations about what it means to have a successful day, or to have a productive,
Life.
and mhm, and just let life happen, and then flow with it, like the lazy river, you know, kind of idea.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this great book that keeps popping in. So you may have read it already. It's The Surrender Experiment. It's Michael Singer, right? The Untethered Soul author.
Yeah,
But he wrote a whole book about that might be fun to revisit if you've already read it.
great. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful and thankful and humbled by this work and the greater consciousness. And thank you for being willing to share your stories and experiences and questions, because each time you do, you're helping all of us. So just as a reminder, I'll be sending out the replay link of this call after the event today. I'll probably come out tomorrow. I will include the water meditation if you haven't already received it or want to download it again. And we'll be doing this again next month on the 4th Thursday. I'll be sending out an email as we get closer. In between, if you have questions or comments or feedback, please feel free to just reply to my email. And I try to get back to everyone in some period of time, not always as quickly as my human self would like, but I do my best to get back to everybody. So I wish you an amazing rest of your evening wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Big love.